Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. This is such a great morning, not just because it is August in Seattle and we've got this fabulous view of the Space Needle, but we're here to talk about something that is just pure good news for the city of Seattle. And we don't often have time to do that and to have those kind of celebrations. We know that right here in the heart of South Lake Union, we can seize a generational opportunity to make transformational investments in housing, jobs, amazing public spaces, and transportation safety. Today, I'm here to announce our plan for the sale of these underused city properties owned by the people of Seattle, and our plan for making sure we maximize their benefit for everyone in Seattle, that we address some concrete problems we have today, but also build for the future generations. I first want to talk to you a little bit about the history of these three properties we're standing on today on Mercer Street that are owned by the city. Since 2014, the city has been talking about what to do with this property in the heart of South Lake Union, one of the most robust, active areas anywhere in America. How do we sell these properties to maximize revenues for the people? How do we make sure that we benefit taxpayers and address things like our housing crisis in Seattle? I really want to give tribute to everyone who's worked on these issues for years to try to have the vision to see how we could make these one parcel of property to build for the city of Seattle. Last July, we issued a request for proposal after finalizing a set of criteria on the potential land sale. Once the city sells a piece of property, we don't get it back. So we have a duty and obligation to really husband those resources for the city of Seattle and maximizes the resources. We knew we had to negotiate the best deal possible and use this property to think about how do we address the real challenges we have in our growing city. We know that we need to address not just the issues we face today, but what are those issues we see in the future to really handle the crisis at hand, but also build for the city of the future. So today we will announce that after months of negotiations, Alexandria Real Estate Equities has agreed to purchase these sites from the city. And I have transmitted legislation to the City Council so that we can proceed with that sale and make some unprecedented investments for the people of Seattle. Alexandria, many of you know them, develops life sciences campuses across the country, including here in Seattle with the Fred Hutch and others. They envision a Mercer Street, an iconic, fully integrated, mixed-use life sciences campus with housing right on site. We have reached an agreement that will deliver nearly $300 million in benefits to the people of Seattle. I want to say that again, a deal that will deliver almost $300 million in benefits to the people of Seattle. Investments of this size don't come often. And in a city of our built environment, to have this kind of opportunity in the heart of the city is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We know that this sale will benefit people of Seattle in three ways. First, the buyer has agreed to make a number of investments on the site with no cost to the city that all residents can enjoy. These benefits, which we'll talk about later, are worth millions of dollars to the people of Seattle. Second, the city of Seattle will receive proceeds of over $143 million that we can invest in the much needed projects we have here in Seattle. We also know that we will be able to pay off tens of millions of dollars of debt and other public benefits that accrued on this property. Make no mistake about it, where we stand is owned by the people of Seattle. It is an asset of the people of Seattle, and it must provide for the people of Seattle today and well into the future. Now we will ensure that the sale benefits all the people of Seattle. Last month, I announced my Housing Seattle Now initiative. a surge of investments that are focused on investing in more housing options and a more affordable housing options in every part of Seattle. Today is another big step towards that goal. Under our agreement, the developer will build 175 affordable apartments on site with no cost to the city. No cost to the city, no subsidy. Those apartments will be mixed throughout the building so that Seattleites of every income level can walk through the same door and have the chance to live on this property. But we know we need to do more. With the proceeds of the sale, the city will also make over $78 million of investments in new affordable housing. $57 million will go towards addressing displacement and creating opportunities for equitable housing near transit. As we build out this city of the future and are investing unprecedented amounts in new transit, we have to make sure near that transit is housing for everyone in Seattle. When Link Light Rail goes in, we know it also raises the value of property, sometimes displacing and gentrifying communities. We want to keep those people in place and let them have the opportunity to enjoy the benefits that are coming to their neighborhoods. We know that we need our communities of color, our immigrants and refugees to continue to be able to live in Seattle. We know that they need to have access to high quality transportation. We're also going to invest $15 million to nearly double the city's portfolio of permanently affordable home ownership opportunities. Lack of access to home ownership opportunities is one of the key things that contributes to the racial disparities in our city and across this nation. So we are going to double those efforts, and you're going to hear more about that from some of the people behind me, but that is going to be a great investment. And finally, we're going to use $6 million of the proceeds to help create a pilot loan program to help low and moderate income families and homeowners build backyard cottages under the legislation we just passed. We know that having backyard cottages and mother-in-laws can help us have more affordable housing options in every part of our city. But we also know the expenses of building those are out of reach for many, many people. So we want to create a revolving loan fund to make sure that more people can have that benefit for them and their families. Government policies helped directly create the racial disparities that exist in our city and across this country. We have to recognize that and acknowledge that. And the only way we undo that is if government policies and government actions purposely target those disparities and try to roll that back. As a city, we must do everything. Yes. We have to acknowledge the impacts of systemic racism, and we have an obligation to undo it. And that's why the core of our housing investments are going to target those disparities and try to make sure that we lift up more people in our community and allow people to stay and live and contribute to the city of Seattle. It makes us a better city. Jobs. The other great thing that this sale will do, both in the short term and the long term, is to allow us to create great family wage jobs, both for the people who will be constructing these buildings and for the people who will work with them once they're built. Our plan includes a project labor agreement that will make sure that these properties are built supporting good family wage jobs. And once the sites are developed, they will support hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs in the life sciences. I really believe that this site will be one of those places that helps Seattle be the place in the world that cures cancer. We also know that our city will benefit in the short term as these buildings are built from the sales tax, B&O tax, and other taxes that we have that help us fund our basic city services. And once we have those life science jobs here in the whole ecosystem, we'll create not just jobs, but the other jobs that go with them, the small businesses that will flourish in this area. Another benefit is, as part of this sale, Alexandria will make a $5 million investment and contribution to help the city in its efforts to address people experiencing homelessness. Another benefit that we're getting here today, great public spaces. A new 30,000 square foot community center right here in the heart of South Lake Union, built by Alexandria at no cost to the city. We've heard that residents in this area need a community center, and this is going to give us one in the heart of a growing part of our city, so close to Seattle Center and close to South Lake Union. The terms we negotiated is that they will build it and it will be operated by Seattle Parks and Recreation with rent free for up to 40 years. Investments for the future. With this investment, we know that we'll be addressing real needs right here in the neighborhood. No city of the future can do better without adding to our transportation infrastructure. We need more transit and we need more ways for multimodal people to get around. Bike lanes, pedestrian practice. As we've reset the Move Seattle levy, what became clear is we've got more projects, more transportation projects that this city needs than we had money allocated for it. And this sale of this property is going to improve on that in a number of ways. Number one, Alexandria itself will pay for the extension of the 8th Avenue pedestrian right-of-way and will extend the two-way protected bike lane. We will use $16.7 million of the proceeds to support new and planned capital projects to improve safety and increase the transportation options for our city. We know we need to build more transit and more ways to get around our growing city as quickly as we can. So it is a great benefit to the city of Seattle. We'll be able to do that as well. I'm really thrilled today to be joined by so many people from the community members from the city of Seattle. People who have been advocating tirelessly for investments in communities, investments in transportation, and having more housing affordable in our city. I also want to take a moment to recognize Councilmember Michael Bryan, Sally Bagshaw, and Bruce Harrell for their tireless work on these projects over a period of time, not just here at the Mercer site, but advocating on an ongoing basis how we can increase transportation infrastructure and housing infrastructure. I also want to take this moment to really express my gratitude to everybody on the city team, and most notably Stephen Shane, and the city budget office, and Ben Noble, who have worked tirelessly to negotiate this deal since the beginning of time. We wanted to make sure that this transaction really was one that benefited people, and it was a tough negotiation. But what we got today is probably one of the most consequential land transactions the city has done in my lifetime. There will be more benefits coming from this property, and this property will provide to the people of Seattle since I think the Seattle Center was built. But even as we make these historic investments, we know the city cannot go it alone. We need our employers, our philanthropists, and others to step up and make sure that people who work in Seattle can actually afford to live in Seattle. We need to make sure that companies like Alexandria are willing to prioritize the public good and help us build a better city from the ground up. What's next? We go and we work with council and we'll propose the use of these proceeds in our budget. It's a great deal for the people of Seattle. I really look forward to working with council to get the details on how all this money will go to benefit the people. And in late September, I'll be announcing my budget after those kinds of negotiations and discussions on how all of these monies will be used. I now want to introduce someone who, if you have been in Seattle any time talking about affordable housing and equity, you know Tony Toe. He is the Director Emeritus of Othello Square Project and Home Site, but he has been doing this for as long as I can remember. He is committed to making sure that government serves people, that people can afford to live in Seattle, and that we have equity-based practices. He has been a fierce, fierce champion for housing and our communities. He is leading the development of Othello Square, which I think is going to be one of the leading examples in any city in America, how we can build a cross-use housing and retail and commercial development to really be community-driven and community benefits. Our city's really lucky to have someone like Tony Toe, who is there acting not just as our conscience, but ready himself to undertake the leadership necessary to make it happen. So Tony, thanks for all you've been doing. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Durkan, and those who know me and my work know that when I hear housing, displacement, and racial equity in one sentence, especially from the mayor, it's music to my ears. The Rainier Valley has been a historic gateway for diversity, housing stability, and home ownership, affordable home ownership. We've had the most racial ethnic diversity and the highest home ownership rates in the city. This is being really, really unprecedentedly tested today. Homesite actually had to shift from being a developer to being a mortgage lender about 10 years ago because we couldn't build anything affordable. We were able to help more people buying existing homes through our lending program than building homes. And, but today, guess what? There is zero inventory for people that are making between $60,000 to $100,000 a year to be able to buy a home. So unless we innovate and create inventory, home ownership will no longer be an option for Seattle families, except for the very fortunate few. The investments in this plan, leveraging other sources, can assure that projects like Othello Square, which includes a limited equity cooperative housing, the use of priority hiring, and housing preference for existing and displaced residents would not stand alone, but be followed by like efforts at Rainier Beach, Mount Baker, and Graham Street in the Rainier Valley. The mayor's plan is comprehensive because it addresses the housing continuum from homelessness to home ownership and is linked to transportation. It is equitable because it accounts for displacement and access to opportunity. And it's strategic because it leverages existing and emerging equity and financial tools in a place-based way. I'm really excited. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Tony. And I next want to invite up to the microphone Alex Hudson, who's the Executive Director of Transportation Coalition Choices Coalition. Anyone who knows Alex and Transportation Choices Coalition also knows that when you're talking about making sure that we have transportation-based equity in our region, they are always there at the table, pushing, prodding, and being creative. So I'm really excited to have Alex here today to talk about some of the great transportation projects that can come out of this.
This is truly a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make transformational change in our city, and we are grateful to see much-needed resources for transportation connections included in the vision of this project. In addition to the projects that you heard about improving safe routes for people walking and biking, the Mercer Street protected bike lane, and the pedestrian improvements along 8th Avenue included as part of the on-site benefits for this deal, we are thrilled to see Mayor Durkan include over $16 million from the sale of this property for multimodal transportation projects. And I'm especially thrilled at the $9 million to move forward the essential work to move forward planning on the Center City Connector streetcar, which will link up to the streetcar network just down the block from here. These funds support projects that will improve safety and increase transportation options to create better transportation network for fewer cars and where residents, workers, and visitors can walk, bike, and take transit wherever they go. We look forward to this site becoming a future home in one of our city's densest neighborhoods and the many public benefits that will come with it. And we applaud the mayor's vision for including transportation investments in a project that will improve mobility, affordability, and safety as part of this historic sale.
And then last for this morning, I'd like to introduce Thatcher Bailey, who is President and CEO of the Seattle Parks Foundation. Thatcher has worn many hats in the city of Seattle, but one of his passions is public spaces, open spaces, and making sure that our parks and community centers really serve all people of Seattle. It's great to have Thatcher here. Thatcher?
Wow, well done, Mayor Durkan. Cheers to you for championing community and recreation space in South Lake Union and across the city. A new community center in this neighborhood will help Seattle Parks and Recreation expand their reach, providing free and low-cost recreation opportunities for all people, and delivering on the department's mission to support healthy people, a healthy environment, and strong communities all across the city. At Seattle Parks Foundation, we believe everyone should feel connected to safe and beautiful green spaces and have easy access to relevant and healthy recreational opportunities. And we know this is a shared aspiration in Seattle. We know public sector, private sector, and the nonprofit sector values can and do align when it comes to building a city that works for everyone. And today we're seeing that as clearly as we possibly could. We see every day, and what we see and celebrate today, big solutions, big wins made possible through innovative partnerships that address our critical needs and create game-changing opportunities for all residents of the city. As Seattle continues to grow, successful partnerships like this will serve as touchstones, reminding us how much we all can deliver to our communities when we work together. Again, congratulations and thank you, Mayor Durkan.
And before I take any questions, I just really want to thank all of the community members who are here and the others who aren't. I also want to thank I have a number of the directors here from our Office of Planning and Development, from Transportation Department, to our Parks and Recreation Department, to Sam Zimbabwe of SDOT. The negotiation of this had a lot of moving pieces. And every time we went back to the table, our departments had to come together and say, okay, how do we change this, move this, so it really benefits us across the board? You know, Office of Housing saying, we can use the money in this way, let's do it this way. And Sam Zimbabwe saying, look, we can use the money for the streetcar, but also build these other things. You know, so there's moving pieces, and all of it as one city at the table saying, how do we help every part of the city, not just today, but into the future. So I want to thank you all for all the work you've done. And I saw Bobby Lee back there from OED. So really, truly, there were almost every department at the table making this happen and planning how do we make sure that we follow through with the promises we're making to the people of Seattle. So with that, if there's any questions, some of them I'll take, some I will defer to some of the more experts behind. Essex.
There is so much room on this site. Why not more affordable housing on this site?
We're building hundreds of units of affordable housing, and it wasn't an or, it was an and. How did we make sure we use part of this site for affordable housing and maximize those opportunities, pay off the nearly $30 million in debt, generate jobs for construction jobs, generate jobs into the future, and have assets to really address the affordable housing needs that we have in other parts of our city, and really avoid the displacement that we have in areas as we know light rail comes. As you heard Tony Toe say, we know that when light rail comes or is already there, that the opportunity for affordable housing in those areas is disappearing. So we needed to make sure that we didn't just have housing here, but we had proceeds to really address those displacement pressures in other parts of the city.
175 units was the minimum amount requested in the RFP. Were any of the other offers, did any of the other offers come in with more units on site?
This was the best offer, both in terms of numbers of housing units and the proceeds to the people of Seattle. When this was originally proposed, there were many people who thought that the sale price was going to be around $60 million. It wasn't. We have benefits of almost $300 million for the people of Seattle, including housing that somebody else is paying for. If we had used this site only for housing, we would have not had any of those other benefits. We would have had to come up with almost $30 million to pay off the debt, and we would have had to try to find resources to build that housing, which we don't have. We were able to maximize the sale of this to make sure that we had affordable housing here and across the city, and able to do all those other things we need. A huge community center, not built by our dollars, free for the people of Seattle for 40 years. Those kinds of proceeds are really important, not just for today, but for the future of the city.
What can you tell us about the other offers?
Those other offers, they're still, because we're, until the city council confirms the sale, everything is under deliberation, will become public record in the future.
homelessness funding, the $5 million, go toward the new regional agency that's being created, and will there be an announcement on that soon?
So the question was, will the $5 million that they're contributing go to the new regional agency, and will there be an announcement? We want to work with council on both how to program a lot of these monies as part of the budget. After we've had those conversations, both the homeless money and the money for transportation, we'll be rolling out all of that as part of my budget. People in the back are saying that you'll be able to get the records from the other offers like almost instantaneously. Yeah, that's what I'm told. Okay, thank you very much for coming.